Hello, welcome to the Wildline podcast. I am your host, Dan. This is a podcast about movies and how much money they make at the box office. So I'm a little bit later than usual this week, but I wanted to get in the show before the new weekend hits, the new movies come out. So I'm going to walk through the top 10 from last weekend, make some witty asides about what happened, and then I'll talk maybe a little bit about what's going to come up this weekend. So last weekend was kind of a repeat of the weekend before. Beauty and the Beast did come in at number one. Everybody thought this was going to happen after its outrageous first weekend. This last weekend it only did about 90.4 million, only, I say. 48% drop, still on over 4,200 screens. Per theater average was up there at about $21,500. Total take so far as of last weekend was $319. I'm gonna take a look and see what it's at now. It's at $341. Domestically, worldwide, $751 million. I thought, for some reason, I thought this was going to taper off a little bit more. A 48% drop is pretty normal. And you take into effect that the first weekend for Beauty and the Beast was kind of outrageously large and way outside what people were projecting. So you were going to think it's going to drop at least above the 50% mark, but it didn't. It held on strong, and there's something about this film that is getting people to see it. Either it's getting a wide variety of people to see it, or you're getting some repeat viewers, and that's why it's not dropping as much. My guess would be that it hit that tipping point of being almost like, I hate to use the word meme, but it does kind of feel that way. I feel like a movie, a good example of this would be like Jurassic World, where it was honestly going to open big, but for whatever reason, it opened huge, and I won't try and figure out why right now. It opens huge, and then when it opens huge, or even the Friday or Saturday of opening weekend, when it becomes such a social event, it then like tips over into like pure hype mode. And so like that's the difference between opening at 130 for Beauty and the Beast and 170. That $40 million jump felt like purely social hype. And that's not to disparage that or to say that that's, that is a comment on the film's credibility or quality, whatever. It's just socially, people, when they feel like they're not in on something, they feel like they're being left out or left behind of some social event, they want to get on board and go see it. And I think that's definitely what happened with Beauty and the Beast, especially on the first weekend, but it looks like it's just sort of, it's hanging in there. I don't think anybody thought it would do this well. That bodes very well for the future Disney live action remakes. I believe Aladdin might be in the works with Guy Ritchie. And then the other ones I think are also coming out soon. I'm not sure when they're coming out, but in any event, this is going to be a huge win for Disney, obviously, and we're going to see a lot more of these live remakes coming out in the future. I don't think any of them are going to do this well. Like, this is just sort of the first time that they really did it. Beloved animated movie, now it's live action. There's some sort of specialness to it, the whole thing. And so I think that's why it's doing so well. Where's this thing going to end up? If it's only dropping 40% or 50%, about 48.3% to be exact, this last weekend. Where is this thing going to go? I had thought that it would be sub 500 million domestically. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to have at least a 3x multiplier. So you're looking at over $500 million domestically, which I don't understand. I didn't understand Secret Life of Pets last year either, and how it did so well. I don't understand how Beauty and the Beast is doing so well. I can try and come up with explanations, but they're sort of just shots in the dark at this moment. So that was number one last weekend, 90 million. Number two last weekend was the opener, Power Rangers, which did definitely better than what they expected, despite the fact that it was $100 million movie, opening at 40 going to say like, oh, it's pretty good. They expected it in the low 30s, I think, and some were even worried it was going to be in the 20s. So Power Rangers opened at 40.3 million, at basically 11K per theater average. That's really good. Because if this was like, if it was 40 million and like 4,200 screens, I'd be like, okay, like that's decent. But the fact that the per theater average was well over the 10K mark suggests that there was a certain level of buzz and hype to this movie, that people wanted to see it. There was a lot of articles over the week about why this did so well. It seemed the previews were very high last Thursday. They indicated an opening weekend of probably in the mid 40s, maybe in 50, and it sort of tapered off as the weekend progressed. So it seemed like there's a lot of fanboy activity going on. People had to see it opening night and opening day, and those people sort of just went away as the weekend progressed. But I think overall it's a big win for these guys. Now, is this thing gonna break even or like any of that kind of stuff? I don't know yet. The budget was pretty significant at 100. Now, if you're looking at a $150 million budget, you're going to be not that happy with a $40 million opening. But at 100, I think you're going to be doing pretty well. It's going to end up at what, right? Because it's front loaded and kind of a fanboy movie, you probably expect like a 2.5 multiplier. So it might, I think it's like, oh, they're going to be happy if it gets over 100, clears the $100 million mark domestically. If it ends up below that, they're going to have problems, right? They're going to be not very happy about that. Now, is this going to launch a series of new Power Rangers movies? Well, first of all, who went to go see this? I mean, they were saying in the articles that a lot of millennial men, I guess people my age or a little bit younger, who grew up with the show. I guess I'm kind of a little bit older than the show's demo when it was on TV. I remember seeing it all the time in the morning, but I just never really watched it that much. They're thinking that drove the audience here. I'm not sure what the younger audience breakdown was, but it sounded like it might have been a larger share of the audience was over 20 than they had thought it would be. That definitely indicates short legs on this one because it was kind of a nostalgia event for people. I'm going to keep a close eye on that one to see where it ends up, because it could end up, despite the fact that it opened pretty large, kind of a break-even push for Lionsgate. But we'll see where it goes. I expect it to have a pretty massive drop this weekend. Definitely over 50, maybe mid 55%. If it hits 60, you're looking at Bad News Bears. So that was number 2 this last weekend. Number 3 was Kong Skull Island. In its third weekend, it made $14.6 million. A decent 47% drop. Not terrible at all. They'll definitely be happy with that. Starting to lose some screens, lost 200 this last weekend. Its take so far, as of Thursday, is $137 million domestically, about 400 worldwide. This is another one like Power Rangers where it's not really clear if this is a win or a loss. Now, it's at 137 now. It's going to end up, whatever, 150, something like that, 160-ish range. Its production budget was 185, so it's at $400 million worldwide. And the reason I keep starting to talk about profitability a little bit more is Deadline is doing their March Madness most profitable movies of 2016. And basically what they do is they break down the budgets for these movies and their total revenue and figure out what the most profitable movie is. This is like the ultimate, in the box office nerd world, that is like the ultimate quest to figure out if a movie is actually profitable at all. And you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, you'll never know, blah, 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 blah. Hollywood accounting is something that comes up pretty often. It's just basically accounting tricks that studios use to make a film that was a loss look like it wasn't a loss. That's all essentially bullshit. Like, at the end of the day, money was spent and money was made. And you can look pretty closely at this stuff, and if you have the right sources, and I think Deadline does, get a decent picture of what happened, right? We all know that the Great Wall is going to lose a lot of money. But the question is, how much money? Is it like $50 million or is it $100 million? And I think Deadline does a good enough job in their analysis and their sort of source digging to find good information. And I'm looking at Kong Island and these numbers, its production budget, and I was reviewing some of the 2016 numbers for P&A budgets, that's prints and advertising. You're looking at, and this is what always blows people's minds about movie production. In a lot of cases, or it is quite possible to have a production budget lower than the marketing budget. I guarantee you the Power Rangers movie probably has a comparable $100 million marketing budget worldwide for that film. And so people say, oh, it's going to make $100 million at the box office and it's only cost $100 million. So I guess it's going to be like break even. No. That's not at all how it works. I'm not going to go into in depth exactly step by step how you figure out these sort of profited revenue figures. But there's a lot more that goes into it. It's actually not so complicated that you can't figure it out, but it's not as simple as, oh, this movie cost production budget wise $100 million, it makes $100 million at the box office, therefore it broke even. It's just not that simple. A movie like Kong Island, 185 budget, it's going to end up in the 150 160 range probably in the United States. Worldwide, maybe 450. This one will have trouble breaking even, despite the fact that it's going to make $400 million or whatever, or $500 million. There's a lot of costs associated with it. You're talking at least $300 million, about $300 million when all is said and done, just on P&A, production budget, sort of back end deals, at least $200 million to release it. And on a $500 million take box office worldwide, right there, you're looking at a break-even situation, because the studios do not take home every single cent that they make at the box office. If they're lucky, they take home half. If they're not so lucky, you're in an international market, it could be 40%. In China, it could be 25%. So when you see a movie that made $500 million worldwide, at best, it's taking home 250 from that, at best, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Sorry for that little side rant, but I'm going to do a special show, I think, probably walking through the top 20 most profitable movies according to Deadline, and just sort of, I don't know, just walk through it and sort of analyze them movie by movie. And I'll probably do two separate shows, like 20 through 10 and then 10 through 1. I might do that next week or in a couple weeks. We'll see. In any event, back to the top 10. Kong, number 3, decent performance on its third weekend, $14.7 million. Coming at number 4, surprisingly, Life. The sort of alien thing, space sci-fi movie with a lot of big names like Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal, only opened at $12.5 million this weekend. It's on 3,100 screens. Its per theater average was just shy of 4,000. Production budget on this one was about 60. This is a big, I don't know if I call it a huge flop. It's a big loss though. Like, this was expected to do much, much better than 12.5 million. That is an awful opening for this film. I can't figure out what happens. I'm a big player of HSX. The moment I saw this movie get posted as an IPO on the Hollywood Stock Exchange, I bought it because on paper it seemed like a really cool movie. Especially with the stars, Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson. I just thought that this thing was going to take off. People love space movies now these days. But now what I didn't do is look at who directed it, and it's Daniel Espinosa, who directed Child 44, which is like a notoriously huge flop. I wish I had looked at that earlier when I was investing in this film. Do your research. In any event, up until about a month ago, I was like, this is going to do well. I'm expecting like a $30 million opening. But then, the newer trailers just weren't as good. They kind of gave away too much. And then within the last month, the hype on this just like, it just gave out. Its legs just totally gave out on the hype, and there's just nobody really wants to see this. There's no reason. There's just no excitement about the movie. And I hear it's pretty good and the reviews are decent. On Cinema Score, it got oh geez, wait a second, I should have looked at this before I said people liked it. I just heard the people that I know liked it who saw it. Critics wise, this is bad. Cinema Score of a C+. That is awful. That is one of the worst scores you can get, essentially. Obviously, you can get a D or an F, but you rarely see anything that low. Like C+ is, for a mainstream movie, is just bad. Rotten Tomatoes, 66% for Life from the critics, so also not good. Still considered fresh, but right on the border. But that audience score of 61% is not great. So what we basically had here was a lack of excitement, and now looking at this reception from the audience and critics, this is going nowhere fast. This could be one of the bigger kind of it's a bigger flop for a mid-grade movie. If this was like a tent pole, cost $150 million to make, you're talking massive, huge, historic flop. But it's just going to be a big loss for Sony. You know, the moment Sony got hacked a couple of years ago, or a few years ago now, I kind of knew that its days were numbered. Just when you have a leak like that, it is so destructive to the business. And obviously the president was forced out over at Sony. They'd never have recovered. And then you had Ghostbusters over the summer, where it was just like a cultural war against the film. They just could not catch a break. And then you had Passengers over Christmas that was supposed to be this huge blockbuster, only ended up making like $99.999 million at the box office. There are just a lot of signs that Sony was in real big trouble. And as of I think a month ago, they're looking for a buyer. And this performance by Life is certainly not going to help that sale price. So Life was number 4. Number 5 was Logan, $10.3 million. Great, 42% drop for its fourth weekend. Starting to lose a lot of theaters, lost 500 theaters. Its per theater average is about 3,300, which is not bad at all for its fourth weekend. Definitely popped off a lot its first couple of weekends, and now it's starting to settle down a bit. Its total takes so far as of last weekend was 201. As of today, it's only about 204. Made a little bit this week. They're going to be obviously super happy. I've talked about it at length. A great performance for Logan, kind of riding the coattails of the rated R breakthrough comic book movie Deadpool. Definitely in that same super dark realm. I think Fox is going to start greenlighting some more comic book rated R movies. So the story in that is still a great performance. Number 6, my favorite film to talk about this year so far, Get Out. Still crushing it with $8.8 million. A 34% drop, also great. And that a 34% drop on top of losing 500 screens last weekend. Per theater average was $3,600. Its total gross so far as of then was 147. As of today, it is at 150. Made some this weekend. I have ranted about this film enough. At the end of the day, Get Out is the biggest story of the year so far. It may end up just being the biggest story. It's one of the bigger stories in horror films of the last 20 years, I would say. I've never seen anything really like this. I mean, you got Split, which also did super well. But that was more on the lines of like a thriller. It was certainly an interesting movie, but it did not have the political and racial undertones of Get Out. And it's also, I don't think, going to make as much money as Get Out. Get Out's going to kind of go way past 150 now. We'll see where it ends up. But an amazing performance for a very small film. But people are very passionate about it and they love it. So Get Out was number 6. And number 7, Chips. What? I think when they announced this coming, this is going to come out, I just didn't get it. I mean, obviously within Hollywood, there's a lot of remakes going on. It's kind of the easy, low-hanging fruit that exists now. But Chips was a show back in the, I guess, late 70s, early 80s. I remember as a kid seeing it on like reruns. I just don't understand at all why you would remake this film. And if you're going to remake it, why don't you do something a little bit more high quality than this? The critics savaged this film. 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences hated it kind of just as much. An audience score of 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very, very bad. Cinema score is a B minus, so pretty close to that life terrible C plus. Overall, just a disaster from top to bottom. The Warner Brothers may not be that upset because the production budget was only $25 million, but they marketed this a lot. So you're looking at least domestically alone, $40 million to market, maybe even 50. They only opened it up on 2,500 screens, so they weren't very confident about it at all. They kind of thought it was going to flop, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's performing incredibly poorly. Its per theater average on the opening weekend was $3,100, which is just not what you want for a movie like this. Just not good. We have not had a great comedy come out in a long time. Everything has sort of flopped this year. Maybe something will come out here in the next month or so, but it's just been a bad year for comedies. So that's number 7, Chips. I hope it goes away completely. Number 8 was The Shack, $3.8 million. Decent 35% drop, even after losing 500 screens. Per theater average is getting to the shaky zone of about $1,700. They'll start dropping this movie a lot quicker from theaters just because it's not making enough cash. So that's number 8. Number 9, sticking around somehow, is the Lego Batman movie. $2.1 million, starting to drop a lot, 54%, because it lost 1,000 theaters. Its per theater average is not good, $1,200. It's in its 7th weekend, so I get it. It's it's not bad relative to being in 7th weekend, but that low of a number in the top 10 like this, in the fact that it's playing over 1,500 screens and it's at a 1,200 per theater average, spells doom in terms of its sticking around. It's going away. They're going to get rid of it very quickly. Not awful performance for that film, but definitely below expectations. It's at 170 now. Maybe it'll end at 175, 180, something like that. Not what they wanted. I think they wanted definitely well over the 200 range for that movie. Number 9, The Belko Experiment, and its 2nd weekend made $1.9 million. A high 55% drop, but it's a horror film, so that's actually not that bad for a horror film. Only playing on 1,300 theaters, kind of a small wide release for Blumhouse, and per theater averages at 1,400. Its total take so far was $7.6 million. The thing with Belko Experiment is not good. Is it a flop? Maybe, but they only spent $5 million on the production budget, and Blumhouse tends to do very low budget social media campaigns, so I don't think the loss there is going to be that huge. In 11th, I'll just have to mention another wide release opener I didn't know anything about, Slamma Jamma, from the River Rain Distribution Company. Sports drama about basketball, obviously, PG, only did $1.6 million. But I will say this, say what you want about Slamma Jamma not opening in the top 10. It was only on 502 screens, so I'm imagining they targeted specific markets here and didn't want to expand too much. Its per theater average, not a horrific $3,300, almost $3,400. It's crazy when you look at per theater averages. It beat Chips, which it came in 7th. Not a great performance by Chips, but it did better than Chips. It did better than Logan on its 4th weekend per theater. It almost got to the level of Life. So, it may have fallen out the top 10, but per theater, not a huge flop by any stretch of imagination. I think it's going to make maybe, I have no idea what they produced it for, but it may not lose them tens of millions of dollars at this point. The only other movie I'll note that opened last weekend was Wilson. This is the Woody Harrelson movie where he kind of plays a very eccentric dude who finds out that he has a daughter. and ends up getting back with his ex-wife to, I guess, hang out with the daughter. Very strange, very arty film. Played horrifically bad. They opened it at 300 screens. Why? Why would you open this movie at 300 screens? There's no reason the movie Wilson, just take a look at the trailer and I can tell you right now, you're like, well, this is a Los Angeles, New York film. And that's it. I can think of like maybe 10 cities where this movie should play in a theater in the United States, and that's it. Like nowhere else should this. It's an art movie through and through. It's for people who like things that are kind of odd and comedy that is a little bit weird. It's for people into artistic films. You know, they don't want to go see Michael Bay every weekend. They want to see something special and weird and unique, and they're okay with it flying flat on its face because it's kind of a little bit experimental on some level, if not in the way that it's shot, perhaps in the writing or the acting. It's out there. I don't know why you'd release this on 300 screens. It doesn't make any sense. It took in $340,000. Its per theater average was just a horrific, basically $1,100, not even. On an opening weekend like this, on a specialty theaters, come on, that's just like shit planning. Not to be like a dick, but like these people get paid a lot of money to do this, and it's kind of like mind-numbing. There's probably like 10 different backstories as to why it opened on 300 screens, but at the end of the day, from a business perspective, it was a terrible decision. I'm not even sure why they released this in theaters at all, to be honest with you. This looks like a Netflix streaming movie. If they paid more than $10 million to make this movie, they're fools. There's just not a market for something like this. I could see it, streaming on Amazon or Netflix, and people, maybe learning to, finding it through those services and learning to love it, but there's no front end consumer for this. It's going to be someone's going to find it passively, or there's just I don't know why you make a product like this at the end of the day if it's not going to sell and it's not going to further anybody's really career here, and no one's really going to see it now. And now they're going to push it to VOD and streaming probably immediately to get something back out of it. But Wilson is the perfect example of how the business and box office has changed. Companies are really fumbling with this. The large studios, Fox Searchlight, of course, is, an indie, quote unquote indie within a major, but, it's a perfect example of how not to create a product, in this current environment. And market a product. I want to say product, I mean movie, obviously. How not to do it nowadays. Like there's no place for a movie like this in the box office nowadays. And unless you're going to market it appropriately and push it on social media and really do an awesome job creating awareness for this film, just push it out to streaming or don't make it at all at the end of the day. That's my little rant on Wilson. That being said, looks like an awesome movie and I want to see it. Just from a business perspective, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So that was this top 10 for the weekend. I'll briefly talk about what's going to come out tonight. Technically, it's probably playing right now. Boss Baby and Ghost in the Shell. Boss Baby, I've been a huge backer of on Hollywood Stock Exchange for the last 6 months. I think it's going to be, it was very undervalued at the time. I think it's going to be big. I think the problem there now is that the main character sounds like Donald Trump. And a lot of parents and families will kind of shy away from the movie because of that. I expect an opening in the 20s, I would say. Maybe breaks the 30s. I don't expect it to go much higher than that. If it goes below 25, it goes below 20, that's not good. That would be a big flop for this film. And then also open up is Ghost in the Shell. I have no idea what this movie's going to do. I have no clue what it's going to do. It looks awesome. It looks like a movie that came out in 1996 with Republica is on the soundtrack. It's like that sort of electronica, mainstream electronic music and stuff like that. Back before it was called EDM. It just seems kind of like out of place, but also like really like perfect for right now because all that stuff is coming back. I have no idea what it's going to do. It could open to like 15 million and it could open to like 40 million. I just have no way to really even think about it or measure it. And I haven't really looked up what people, the critics are saying about it, or even the industry analysts are saying about it. It's got a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. That'll probably be close to its final score since it is opening tonight. Pretty high want to see score on Rotten Tomatoes, 96% out of about 25,000 ratings. That's decent. I think a win for this is anything over 25. Which is exactly what I said about Boss Baby. Well, something's totally full of shit. Probably a win for this, anything over 30. And a loss is anything in the mid 20s and below. I kind of have faith in this film just because it kind of seems really cool. It just seems like The Fifth Element mixed with like Blade Runner and mixed with like Blade or something like that. I think stylistically it could be a home run. I'm just not sure if anybody else, like under the age of like 35 is gonna really tap into this or not. Especially that 12 to 17 range, which is like the highest movie going group of people per capita, otherwise known as teenagers. We'll see if they go and see this. I don't know. I have no idea. Any event, that's all I got for this week. I'm traveling a lot in the next week, so I will try to get in the show next week. But if I don't, then I'll do one in 2 weeks. And I'll definitely do a couple of shows on Deadline's most profitable movies of 2016, because that's the stuff that I nerd out to the most. Anyways, thanks for listening. This is the Wildlife Podcast. I've been Dan. Thanks for listening.